Hello students. In the last class, I started explaining the first kingdom of five kingdom classification, that is Kingdom Monera. In that, I explained about various characteristic features of Kingdom Monera and classification of Kingdom Monera. In that, I clearly mentioned Kingdom Monera, it includes Eubacteria, Archaebacteria and Cyanobacteria. Just in the previous class, I explained about Eubacteria. In that, I explained about various characteristics of Eubacteria and also the structure of the prokaryotic cell. In today's class, I am going to explain about Archaebacteria. Archaebacteria is the most primitive group of prokaryotes where it lives in extreme climatic conditions. If you compare Archaebacteria with Eubacteria, Eubacteria is cosmopolitan in its distribution. That means in almost every habitat you can be able to see this Eubacteria group. At least one or two colonies of Eubacteria, almost every habitat you can be able to see. But if you come to Archaebacteria, it lives in extreme climatic conditions. For your understanding, I brought some examples also. Let us take the first example, that is halophiles. Halophiles are the group of Archaebacteria which live in extreme salt areas, whereas the second group is thermoacidophils. Thermoacidophils, it lives in hot springs, whereas methanogens, it lives in marshy areas. Like that, Archaebacteria is a group of bacteria which live in extreme climatic conditions. Hope you understood. Now let us take what are the characteristics of these Archaebacteria. Archaebacteria, as I already mentioned so clearly, it is the oldest and most primitive prokaryotes and first to be born on our planet. That is the reason why this Archaebacteria group, it is also called as oldest living fossil. Hope you know what is the meaning of fossil. The dead remnant of any organism. That means if any organism is dead. Let us take a very easy example. Earlier there is a group of organisms that is called as dinosaurs. Now there is no more dinosaur on this existing planet, but still you can be able to see some movies are taking on this dinosaurs. How it is possible? This is possible because though that organism is no more, their dead remnants are still there. That means if an organism is dead, it gets buried in the earth's crust due to the pressure accumulated by the soil particles. The moisture content of this particular body, dead body, it will be crushed up, so that the soil which is around it, it forms a thin coat around that particular dead body, and that sediment of this dead organism is called as fossil. Now let us take the living fossil. What is the meaning of living fossil? Means this is a group of organism where almost all the organisms are dead. That means this group of bacteria, it is represented by very few members. That's why it is called as living fossils. Hope you understood. Again, I am telling for your clarity, fossil means dead remnant of any organism is called as fossil. Living fossil means the group of organisms which is represented by very few organisms, and most of the organisms of that particular group is no more now. Then that group, it is called as living fossil. Now let us take oldest living fossil. The meaning of oldest living fossil is Archaebacteria is the most primitive, earliest bacteria of all the bacteria. That's why oldest living fossil. Hope you understood what is a clear meaning of the Archaebacteria. As I clearly mentioned in the first point itself, Archaebacteria found in stressed environmental conditions like high salt content, hot springs, and also marshy areas. Like that, it lives in extreme climatic conditions where Methanococcus, Methanobacterium, and Thermococcus, these are the group of Archaebacteria which show some proteins which are homologous to the eukaryotic histones. Students, you remember it or not? I already told you in the last class, Histones are the group of proteins that are present in the nucleus of the eukaryotic organisms. Let us take one nucleus. If you take the nucleus it consisting of one nuclear membrane. The second part is nucleoplasm. That means the fluid that is present in the nucleus, that is called as a nucleoplasm. And the third one is nucleolus, and the fourth one is genetic material. Now the genetic material, it is a thread-like structure. If the thread-like structure, if it is scattered, it occupies a lot of area. For example, you just take one example, then you will understand so clearly. Let us take one handkerchief. This handkerchief you are spreading, then what happens? It occupies lot much area. Am I correct or not? Now what you do now, to save the area, you fold this particular handkerchief. Now it occupies very less area. Am I correct or not? That means by folding the handkerchief, you reduce the occupancy of that particular object. Am I correct or not? Like that, by coiling this particular thread-like DNA, you can be able to control or reduce the occupancy of that genetic material. For example, if you throw a woolen ball a scattered way, then it occupies the lot of area. But if you take a small stick and around that, if you start coiling that particular woolen thread, then what happens? It occupies very less area. Same example you compare with the histone proteins. Now histone proteins, they are the proteins which helps in the coiling of this particular chromatin material, so that the occupancy of the chromatin material, it will be restricted to the such a less area, that is it fits in that particular nucleus. Hope you understood. Now this Methanococcus, Methanobacterium, and also Thermococcus, they exemplify the archaebacteria that contains the proteins which are homologous. That means looks alike to the eukaryotic histones. They are not exactly histones. Please try to understand. They are not actually this bacteria, archaebacteria. It is a prokaryotic cell. How a prokaryotic cell, it show the structure of a eukaryotic cell. That point you please try to understand. It is not histone protein. Histone like proteins, they are present in the archaebacteria, which helps in the coiling of the chromatin material of the archaebacteria. Hope you understood. But still, if you don't understand, you can ask any question anytime. You can post your question into the WhatsApp group. Okay, now let us take few more characteristics of archaebacteria. They differ from eubacteria in the absence of peptidoglycan in their cell wall. In the previous class I told, the cell wall of the eubacteria, it is made up of a special type of protein that is called as peptidoglycan. Whereas if you take archaebacteria, this peptidoglycan is absent in their cell wall. Then cell wall, it is made up of what? If you take that point, the cell wall of archaebacteria, it is made up of non-cellulosic polysaccharides. Again, I repeat, non-cellulosic polysaccharides, and of course some proteins are also present. So this is the composition, or this is a substance with which the archaebacteria cell wall is made of, whereas the eubacteria cell wall, it is made up of peptidoglycan. And students, I am telling you, this is a very important point. You need to remember this point because it is already asked in your NEET exams. The archaebacteria cell wall is made up of dash, they will give, and they will give 4 options. Then you have to choose the option non-cellulosic polysaccharides and some proteins. Usually some proteins they don't mention in the question, especially non-cellulosic polysaccharides. This point you have to remember. Okay, in some members even the cell wall is absent also, and this feature of having the cell wall which is made up of non-cellulosic polysaccharides and some proteins, they make these archaebacteria to live in extreme climatic conditions. Now coming to the next characteristics, their cell membrane, it is not a unit membrane, while the eubacteria cell membrane is a unit membrane. The cell membrane of the archaebacteria is highly complex because it consisting of branched lipid chains, and this question is one of the most important question. The branched the branched lipid chain of cell membrane can be seen in, they will give archaebacteria, eubacteria, cyanobacteria and mycoplasma. Like that they will give many options, but the options you have to choose is archaebacteria. So the cell membrane of the archaebacteria is having highly complex because it is having branched lipid chains. Whereas if you take other bacteria like eubacteria and also cyanobacteria, you take any other bacteria, that other bacteria cell membrane, it is called as a unit membrane because they consisting of single layer of the lipid layer, single lipid layer. That's why unit membrane, single lipid layer. Whereas archaebacteria, it consisting of branched lipid chain. So this is a difference between other bacteria to archaebacteria. That means, are you noticing, students, right from the beginning, I am comparing archaebacteria with other bacteria. The reason is I wanted to clearly show you that archaebacteria has some special adaptations, special modifications by which it is getting the capacity to live in extreme climatic conditions. Now you understood, I think so, where archaebacteria, it is chemoautotrophic. Chemoautotrophic means the organism which can prepare its own food material by using certain chemicals, then that is called as chemoautotrophs. Whereas the bacteria which can be able to prepare its own food material in the presence of the sunlight, then that is called as photoautotroph. And this difference I already told you in the last class. Please try to recollect that point. If you forget also, there is no problem because my video is there. Just go for that video again, you see that part and then you will clearly understand. And mostly archaebacteria are obligate anaerobes. That means strictly they lives in anaerobic conditions only. And in the last class only I told what is the meaning of aerobe and anaerobe. The organism which can respire in the presence of oxygen, then that is called as aerobe. Whereas in the absence of oxygen, if they are respiring, then that is called as anaerobe. Whereas obligate anaerobe means strictly they are anaerobic only. Now there are some bacteria which are anaerobes, but if possibility is not there, they can also convert into aerobes. That option is there, then that is called as a facultative anaerobe. Whereas I'm talking about archaebacteria strictly obligate anaerobes. That means they're strictly anaerobic bacteria. Whereas the nucleotide sequence in archaebacteria is 16S rRNA, which is quite different from all the other prokaryotes. Whereas students, just for now you remember this particular 16S rRNA, and this is actually the topic of your 12th standard. Now you just remember this, because if I start explaining about all these words, then it takes 2 hours to explain this word only. That's why now you remember archaebacteria, it consisting of the nucleotide sequence of 16S rRNA. But in your 12th class, molecular basis of inheritance, in that particular topic I am going to explain all the RNAs. What is rRNA, what is mRNA, what is tRNA, everything I am going to explain. Everything I can't be able to explain in one class. It is not even possible also. For now, you just remember the archaebacteria consisting the nucleotide sequence, that means the genetic material with the sequence of 16S rRNA. Itna hi yaad rakh, and remaining everything I am going to explain in your 12th class. It is actually a very high topic also. I will explain later. Okay. Now let us take types of archaebacteria. There are 3 groups of archaebacteria that are present. That is methanogens, halophiles, and thermoacidophils. Now let us go for all these groups one after one in detailed manner. Now the first group, that is called as methanogens. Methanogens basically the group of archaebacteria which can be able to produce methane by fermentation, and all these particular bacteria, they are called as methanogens, and obviously they are obligate anaerobes. That means they are strictly anaerobes. And these bacteria converts the fumaric acid and carbon dioxide of swampy, that means marshy areas, into methane. And the best example is methanobacterium, methanococcus, and methanomycobium. So these are some examples of the archaebacteria, which has ability to convert the fumaric acid and carbon dioxide to methane, and they live anaerobically in the gut of several ruminants like a cow, goat, and buffaloes. These are ruminants. In the ruminants, gut means intestine, gut basically means intestine. In the intestine they live anaerobically and converts this cellulose. Basically, if you take a cow obviously it eat grass. In the grass, it is grass basically means it's a plant na? So plant cell wall, it is made up of cellulose. So this cellulose, by the fermentation, it converts this cellulose into the methane. So 65% of the atmospheric methane, it will be produced by these particular methanogens only, whereas the example for this is ruminococcus. It is one of the best example, and these bacteria, it also converts the organic substances like cellulose present in the cow dung into methane by the fermentation. Even the gobar gas fermentation, for example, if you go to some ashram or some other vertical restaurants where they make a plant, a gobar gas plant, in that they fill this particular cow dung, and by using certain methanogens they produces this particular gobar gas. Hope you know what is the meaning of gobar gas plant. Gobar gas plant means just by using this cow dung they produces this cooking gas, and this cooking gas which is produced by the fermentation of the cow dung with the help of methanogens, then that is called as gobar gas. Gobar gas nothing means it is methane only you are considering it as gobar gas. And for this, the same example is methanobacterium, methanococcus, and methanomycobium. So these are the examples, but please try to understand one very important point. This methane, it has capacity to absorb the atmospheric heat, so that more amount of methane if it release, it may leads to greenhouse effect. Hope you know what is the meaning of greenhouse effect. Slowly the earth, it becomes heated up, and this heating of the earth due to the excessive releasing of methane, and that only are calling it as greenhouse effect or global warming. Global warming, in the name itself it is clearly mentioned, globe, it is getting heated up, that's why it is called as global warming. Now let us take another group, that is halophiles. Halophiles means the group of archaebacteria which live in high saline regions. That means high salt content में the archaebacteria live, and that group of archaebacteria only are calling it as halophiles. An example, salt lakes, and also salt marshes, and salt pans, and also salt solutions. These are some examples so that you can clearly understand, and mostly obviously they are anaerobes only. And very important point I'm telling you, these halophiles, they consisting of a special type of chemical that is called as halorhodopsin. Usually when I start explaining about halophiles, almost every student, they will get one doubt. What is that, sir? For example, I many times I've seen my mother is cooking this sabji. When she is cooking sabji, when she adds salt, all these vegetables, they start losing their water content, and so that the cooking, it becomes very fast. That means if any organism, if it is present in the salt area, they tend to lose their water out of their bodies. But you are telling this archaebacteria, especially halophiles, they live in salt conditions. Then in that case, this halophiles slowly they loses their water, and all the water content, it comes out, and they will die one day. But still you are telling that they are living in salt conditions. Somewhere the link is missing. Obviously when you don't know this concept, this doubt is very common, and many students, they ask this doubt in previous years also. That's why I'm telling, they consisting of a special chemical called as halorhodopsin. With the help of this halorhodopsin, to pump in chlorides into the cell. By pumping the chlorides into the cell, they prevent the cell dehydration. Hope you know what is the meaning of dehydration. Losing of the water out of the cell, it is called as a dehydration. So by this chloride pump, which is established by this halorhodopsin chemical, they are living in the salt areas, but still they are not losing the water of the cell. This point, students, very, very important. If this point, if you don't understand, immediately you message me or you call me. I'll definitely explain it still more clearly, because you will confuse if you don't understand this point, how they are living in salt areas. Usually any organism, if you keep it in salt areas, for example, if you take, there are some municipality workers, when they are clearing the sewages, they smear the salt around their body, because when the salt, any bacteria come in contact, then what happens, this bacteria cannot be able to tolerate this particular salt content. But I am telling halophiles are living in the salt content. How it is possible? That is possible because of this halorhodopsin only. So presence of the halorhodopsin chemical is one of the major characteristic feature of the halophile group of archaebacteria. Hope you got it. Whereas halobacterium develops a purple membrane which consisting of photoreceptor pigment that is called as bacteriorhodopsin. Please understand, don't get confused. The above chemical is called as halorhodopsin, which prevents the cellular dehydration. Now I am telling one more pigment that is called as bacteriorhodopsin. What is the significance of this bacteriorhodopsin? This bacteriorhodopsin, when the light it is absorbed by this bacteria, directly the light it is converted to ATP. See how amazing this fact it is. Now usually if you take a plant, it traps the sunlight with the help of chlorophyll pigment, and then it participate photosynthesis, and by the photosynthesis it is preparing its own food material. Am I correct or not? This is the actual sequence that takes place in the plants. But halophiles are different. Directly the light absorbed, it is directly converted into ATP, and the direct conversion of light into ATP, it is possible due to the presence of bacteriorhodopsin. One of the most important question which is usually asked in your NEET exam. So here I gave two special type of chemicals. The first one is halorhodopsin, which prevents the cellular dehydration, and second one is bacteriorhodopsin, which gives the ability to convert direct sunlight directly into the ATP. So these are the two chemicals you have to remember, students. They cannot prepare their food like carbohydrates like eubacteria. Directly they form ATP by this by this sunlight itself. Okay, and the examples for this is halobacterium and halococcus bacteria. These are the perfect examples. And prokaryotes, which grow and multiply in very deep marine sediments, that means very deep sea, deep ocean region, and that bacteria is called as barophilic prokaryotes. Hope you understood what is the meaning of barophilic. Barophilic bacteria are the group of bacteria which has ability to live in deep oceans, deep sea beds may they can be able to live. Now let us take the third group of the archaebacteria, that is called as thermoacidophils. In the name itself, you try to break this word. Thermo means temperature. Acido, that means the acidity, that means the acidic nature. Phils, that means they can tolerate both high temperature and also high acidic nature. In the name itself, the clear meaning it is given. And I am going to explain it. These archaebacteria, they can live both in high temperature, even up to 100 degrees centigrade, and high acidic pH, around 2 pH. So because they have tolerance for high pH, that means high acidic nature, and also high temperature, that's why they are called as thermoacidophils. And even they found in hot sulfur springs, and under anaerobic conditions these organisms oxidize the sulfur to sulfuric acid. See, I clearly mentioned this is sulfur, they reacts with water and some oxygen, so that they converts into this sulfuric acid, and some energy it is given. That's why they are called as chemoautotrophs. That means using chemicals they are getting the energy. That's why they are called as chemoautotrophs. Where thermoacidophils, how they can be able to tolerate high temperature and low pH, that means highly acidic pH. The reason behind it is they consisting of special branched chain of lipids in the cell membrane, and enzymes can work at low pH, and enzymes are resistant to high temperature coagulation. So because of these three special characteristics, by developing these three special type of characteristics, they are living in high temperature and also high acidic, that means extreme acidic, like pH 2 means high acidic conditions may also they can be able to live. And the best examples is Thermoplasma and also Thermoproteus. These are one of the big great examples of this thermoacidophils. Okay, now let us take what are the differences between eubacteria and archaebacteria. Let us see. As I clearly mentioned, eubacteria almost every habitat may you can be able to see, that means they are present everywhere, whereas archaebacteria live in extreme climatic conditions, means high salt content, high temperature, high acidic nature, like that they live in extreme climatic conditions. Eubacteria, usually a cell shape will be spherical, as I clearly mentioned in the last class itself. Coccus bacteria means round or oval bacteria, and Bacillus means rod shaped, Vibrio means comma shaped, and spiral shaped, that means spiral like coiled shape. So these are the usual shapes of eubacteria, whereas archaebacteria, they are spear shaped, rod shaped, plate shaped, or spiral, flat, or even square shaped also, whereas their cell walls are made up of peptidoglycan, whereas here peptidoglycan is absent, where their cell walls are made up of non-cellulosic carbohydrates, and of course some proteins are also present, whereas the plasma membrane, it consisting of phospholipid, whereas here very important question, branched lipid chain it is seen in their plasma membrane. And of course this is a very common characteristic. All the bacteria, they are characterized by the presence of 70S bacteria, that's why eubacteria and also archaebacteria both consisting of 70S ribosomes only, whereas here histone proteins are absent, whereas here histone proteins are absent. Please try to understand, don't get confused. Here also histone proteins are absent, but there are proteins which are similar to histones that is present in archaebacteria, whereas eubacteria, it is divided into gram positive and gram negative bacteria, whereas archaebacteria, it is differentiated into methanogens, halophils, and thermoacidophils, that means three groups, whereas eubacteria only into two groups, where eubacteria, the asexual reproduction, it takes place by binary fission and endospore formation. In the last class itself, just in the last class itself, I explained so clearly about this binary fission and also endospore formation, whereas archaebacteria may binary fission can be seen, budding can be seen, and also fragmentation can be seen. Binary fission means one cell, if it is dividing into two daughter cells, then that is called as binary fission, whereas budding means from the cell a small projection, finger-like projection it arises, which is called as bud. Slowly, this finger-like projection which is arised out of the cell, it eventually grow into an individual organism, then that is called as a budding. Fragmentation means if the cell, if it breaks into 2-3 pieces, and each and every fragment it develops into a new individual bacteria, then that is called as fragmentation. And these are some bacteria examples of eubacteria, and these are some examples of this archaebacteria. Let us go for at least 2-3. Chlorobium, Acetobacter aceti, Clostridium tetani, Mycobacterium. So these are some examples of archaebacteria, and I'm sorry, eubacteria. I'm extremely sorry for this. And eubacteria, Thermoproteus, Thermoplasma, Halobacter, and Ferroplasma. These are some examples of archaebacteria. So students, hope you understood today's class, and in other class I am going to explain about the third group of the Monera, that is cyanobacteria. And today's class if you have any doubts, you are free to ask any doubt. Okay, thank you so much.